Welcome to you all. This is Alindo Day. Today I will discuss some parts of the joints of rail. This video is about the brief description on rail joints. Coming to the first part, what is rail joint? So the rail joint are necessary to hold together the adjoining end of the rails in the correct position. That means both in horizontal position and vertical position. In this picture you can see this is one rail and this is one rail. So this is the joint of two ends of both the rails. So here we have to provide some joint. There are various mechanisms to provide this thing. We will discuss about that later in this video. Another important thing is rail joint is the most weak part of the whole track. It is observed that strength of the rail joint is only 50% comparing to the strength of the rail. The next part, why this is required and what are the basic requirements of a rail joint. Few basic requirements are two rail ends should remain true in both laterally and vertically. True means it should be in linear position and the lateral and vertical both the position should be same, because if it is not in vertical position the wheel can jump over there, and if it is not in lateral position then the wheel will be detract. Another important part is the rail joint should be as strong and stiff. The rail joint should provide enough space for free expansion and contraction. A good joint should easily disconnected so that it can be easily taken out without disturbing the whole track. The ends of the rail should be battered in any case. The joint should fulfill all the requirements I have mentioned with minimum of initial and maintenance cost. The next part we will see the different type of rail joints. The first one is supported rail joints. You can see in the picture two rails are joined in this way. So a supported rail joint, it is said to be a supported rail joint when the rail ends rest on a single slipper. It is called the supported rail joint. You can see in the picture that this rail joint ends on this particular slipper. The next one is suspended rail joint. Suspended rail joint means when the rail ends are projected beyond the slipper, it is called suspended rail joint. You can see this joint is not over one slipper, it is in between this two slipper. That's why it is said to be a suspended rail joint. Next one is bridge joint. It means when the suspended rail joint are connected by flat or some plates, it is said to be a bridge plate, or you can say this a bridge joint also. The next one is a welded joint. Welded joint means you can easily understand these are the best joint as they fulfill nearly all the requirements of the ideal joint. This portion in the joint it is welded. The next one we'll see is based on the position. This is staggered or broken joint. Staggered joint means in one line the joint is in this position and in the second line the joint is in this position. That means these joints are not in opposite with each other. That's why it is called a staggered or broken joint. Sometimes we can see a square or even joint. So this is just the opposite of staggered joint. You can see in the picture that both the joints are exactly opposite in two parallel lines. So this is called square or even joint. The next one is insulated joint. Insulated joint is a medium which is provided in the joint. You can see that white part. It is a insulating medium and it is inserted in a rail joint to stop the flow of current beyond the track circuited part. That's why it is called a insulated joint. The next one is expansion joint. You can see in between the joint there is some portion, some gap which is given or which is provided to allow this rail to expand a little bit. So expansion joint is provided in bridge provisions for expansion or contraction. This gap is kept for girder and rails. This gap is normally 2.2 centimeter in case of meter joint and 7.2 centimeter for halved joint. The next one is compromise joint. Compromise joint means when two different rail sections are required to be joined together, it is done by means of fish plate. This is termed as compromise joint. You can see this plate is known as fish plate. So with the help of this fish plate, these two rails are joined. That's why it is called a compromise joint. Now we have already told that welding is the most ideal joint or best joint which fulfills all the requirements over there. So regarding some purpose of welding, we can say welding is provided to increase the length of the rail and to reduce the number of joints, and sometimes to repair the worn out or damaged rails, to build up worn out points, and sometimes to build up the burnt portion of rail head which is caused due to slippage of wheels over the rails. Now coming to the advantages of the welding rails. The main advantages is it satisfies the condition of a perfect joint and hence increase the life of the rail, and it reduce the maintenance cost by 20 to 40%. That is a very important point for welding. The next portion we can mention that it reduces the creep due to increase in the length of rail. It is in case of long length rail being heavier, which raises the vibration due to moving loads. It also decrease the wear in rail at joints. It facilitates track circuiting on electrified track. The cost of track construction by welding of rails decreases due to less number of rail joint. Now very briefly, this is the type of welded rails. Short welded rails. For broad gauge it is 3 into 13 meter, for meter gauge it is 3 into 12 meter. For long welded rail, minimum length is more than 200 meter for broad gauge and 300 meter for meter gauge, and continuous welded length, we can say that the length of welded rails is more than 1 kilometer normally. The next part, methods of welding. There are various methods. Among them few important methods we can discuss. That the first one is electric arc welding method. The another name of this method is metal arc welding method. The second one, you can see this method is called the flash butt welding method. Normally you can weld this way in this procedure in the workshop also. The next part, another methods we can see, this one is oxyacetylene welding, or another name is gas pressure welding. Basically for repairing work and cutting of steel on site, this method is popular. And this one is another method, chemical welding, or you can say the thermal welding. This method is used for renewal of rails. Thank you.